Well, hey everyone, Pat Mesiti here, and today is, let's just say, a very sad day because of some of the absolute tyranny, despicable behaviour of, let's put it frankly, luxury brands. Today we're going to cover a couple of subjects, and I've invited Alexandra Marshall on, and I'm going to bring her on in a second, and Senator Malcolm Roberts, who's been held up, but we will get him on the program. But, you know, I really believe that our society has lost all sense of a moral compass. And sadly, I want to make this statement. From luxury brands to sons of presidents, prove me if I'm wrong, sons of presidents, the abuse, the sexploitation of our children has reached absolute pandemic proportions. And yet government, especially this one in Australia, and also, let me just say, members of the religious community are very, very silent. Luxury brand Balenciaga, or maybe we should call them Balenciaga, in their Fashion Week Spring-Summer catalogue, their photographer, National Geographic photographer Gabrielle Glambretti, shot the campaign for the luxury French label featuring two child models posing with harness bare handbags from its Paris Fashion Week Spring-Summer collection. The plush toys that they're holding are dressed in bondage, BDSM garb, fishnet tops, leather, harness, and collars with locks. This is pedo chic. This is the photograph. And what I want to say about this is it is deplorable. What I'm not showing you is the other photo that was along this, a photograph of a man with a key to the lock. This is absolute disgusting. This is not only something that needs to be called out on every level. To me, I am absolutely convinced that the trafficking and abuse of children goes to the highest officers in the country. I don't care who they are. I don't care who they are. Whether it's on some president's son's computer, who now CBS says now there is an issue. Now there is a computer. Before it was just Russian disinformation. But what is sad is this pedo chic stuff is absolutely deplorable. And let me just add this. We can bring the photo down, thanks in the studio. Let me just say this. Anyone knows a photo shoot would probably not have involved just one or two children. And it would have gone on for hours. Absolute hours. Why are we sacrificing the innocence of our children on the altar of brands, to the elites, to the richest of the rich? The West is in trouble. It has lost its north compass. It is sacrificing our children by exploiting them. The disgraceful exploitation of our children from the likes of Despicable Dan down there in Victoria, who pushes law that basically children in their innocent ages can have gender reassignment without permission of the parents, as long as they are, a mature minor, whatever that means. We have lost our absolute compass. I want to remind you of the words of Jesus. Let me just throw what Jesus said here. He said, anyone that harms these children, it'd be better if they stuck a milestone around their neck and cast themselves into the sea. You see, William Booth and Catherine Booth stood up against the royal family of the day because of stuff like this. Yet our government officials, our mainstream media says nothing. The problem is that this abuse of humanity, it starts from the womb, then it moves into children, and then of course the outcome of that, which I'm going to bring Alexandra on in a minute, goes into the abuse of adults. This is evil. The sacrifice of the innocents is a reflection of the depravity of government and society out of control. When we sacrifice, and I would dare call them Christian values, we sacrifice Christian values on the altar of wokeism, on the altar of activism, the people that suffer are our children. No wonder our children today are suffering from anxiety, depression. They're suffering from all kinds of abuse, mental, physical, and sexual. And what irritates me is the silence of the likes of a Dan Andrews, an Albanese, and everybody else. You see, when we replace our traditional values, our children are not protected. Balenciaga comes up with some lame apology which is not good enough. Their lame duck apology is not good enough. Our future is in our kids. And just like in days of old when they sacrificed children on the altar of Molech, we are sacrificing them on the altar of billionaire brands, government elites, and absolute depraved activism. Absolute depraved activism. What bothers me is we're sacrificing our kids, let every kind of warped transgender thing person get out there and read to them. Of course children are intrigued. They see it as some sort of clown or something. But what bothers me is why do these people want the attention of our children? And why do luxury brands like Balenciaga and elites, mind you, use our children as prawns for their depravity? You see, it is sad, and it is a reflection of the lack of moral compass that our culture has gotten itself into. We have removed what I believe Christ. Let me just say this. Christianity in its faith in and of itself raises people up. It values people. It values people. You see, it caused women to find real value by bringing them into family and marriage. And forgive me if my words today are a little bit out of sync because I'm so livid about this. Faith elevates people. It elevates women. It elevates children. It elevates people of all different races and color. It teaches mutual love and respect, where women weren't just property, where children aren't just a product and a commodity to be used at the hands of the depraved human beings. Women, in the eyes of Jesus, were seen as equals. He brought about revolutionary change, just like Catherine and William Booth. Where is the Salvation Army of today speaking out against this stuff? Where are our church pulpits speaking out against this? And they can easily say, well, we didn't know. It's your job to know. We have removed Christ as a central figure of society. And by the way, I'm not just talking about the religious institution. I'm talking about the values of Christianity. Today, our culture now wants to even remove Christ from Christmas. Have a look at this, well, I don't know what the hell it is, out there in, I think it's in the Queen Victoria building in Sydney, this altar to Woketopia. They've replaced the nativity scene with some indigenous art. What is wrong with society? If it wasn't for the person of Christ, there would not be such a thing called Christmas. There it is. What does that have anything to do with Christianity or with the Christmas season? Absolutely nothing. And there you've got the Greens pushing to ban traditional prayers in New South Wales State Parliament, but are okay with acknowledgement of country pledges. So each year the war on faith, particularly Christianity, advances. Little by little, we are seeing the dismantling of traditional Christian values, which are the basis of law in all society, especially this one. But at the altar of wokeism, at the behest of elites and World Economic Forums, at the vocalness of activism, we are abandoning all sense of moral compass. From the womb to our aged care centres and our elderly. What is happening is absolutely deplorable. And let me just say this before I bring on our guests. If people of faith don't rise up and speak up, If church leaders, yes, I am having a go at church leaders today, and rightfully so, they don't speak up, voices will come from another area. And I'm very grateful for voices like Alexandra Marshall and Malcolm Roberts that are standing up against this absolute depravity that has become a tsunami of evil. It's almost like hell has vomited itself. And mark my words, these people will pay for this. If not now, there will come a day of reckoning. Mark my words. And for those of you that are worried, oh, Pat's angry, he's showing his anger. Do you know what? You're not angry enough. You ought to be angry at this. It affects your children, your grandchildren. Any society that treats its children with this level of depravity does not deserve children. Doesn't. We slaughter them in the womb, we slaughter them after the womb, and then we sacrifice them on the altar of luxury brands, and we are okay with some lame, weak, impotent apology. It is not good enough. There needs to be laws passed to stop this nonsense. And if not, we need to ask questions. Why? Why not? If government isn't complicit and compliant with this, speak up. Speak up. Why the silence? Why the silence? And why the silence from the mainstream news media? Alexandra Marshall, great to have you on the program. We were talking off air before. You had some insight that I didn't know about. I'll let you loose.
Well, first of all, I'm pretty sure that's my photograph that I took in the QVB a couple of weeks ago when I was waiting for a friend, and I put it up on social media complaining about the erasure of Christmas. What it is the base of the Queen Victoria building tree where they used to have the trunk. And when I was a child, I used to come up and look at the Queen Victoria tree. They had all these beautiful little toys and things running around. It goes up about 3 or 4 levels, and you spend hours there watching this tree. And then I think it was 5 or so years ago, they replaced the tree with the Schwarzkopf crystal tree. So a commercialized version of the tree that had very little to do with the little Christian scenes and things. And when I walk down to meet my friend this year, I see whatever this is sitting at the bottom of the tree, which is obviously got nothing to do with the Christian faith. Now, as you know, I'm actually not a religious person, but I do recognize that this is a cultural event. And a lot of people like me, we still love our cultural seasons, and it's part of society itself. And human beings have always had cultural events, and they do mean something to humanity. To have it washed away by this, I don't know what you'd call it, this idea of blending cultures to basically erase the significance of the Christian event. Because let's face it, Indigenous culture has nothing to do with Christian culture. It's not an Indigenous event. It'd be like us going to Ayers Rock and sticking a cross on top of it. It's not what you do. It's not respectful. And it certainly is diminishing Christmas. And so I was pretty upset about it when I saw it, hence the photograph. But as far
I did not know that was. I did not know that was your photo. I had no idea.
Yeah, that's why
Ellie,
for it.
There you go. Well, there you go. There's a scoop. Now, Ellie, you were telling me about Twitter, and then we will get on to the subject that we actually have got you on with this absolutely evil medical tyranny that they're about to unleash upon us. And folks, you want to get people on board now. Ellie is going to blow the lid of this medical tyranny. But can you tell everyone what you shared with me previously while we're off air?
Yeah, so this brand of yours, was it Balenciaga or something? I don't have enough money to buy anything from them, so I'm not really sure. But I came across the story because it was part of a Twitter story where all these advertisers are deserting, these woke advertisers are deserting Twitter because Elon Musk has purchased it. And so the story was that just as Elon Musk in the last 2 weeks has done more to protect children on Twitter than anybody in the years since, like he literally sacked half the workforce and almost all of the community safety standard people and improved safety on Twitter, which shows you what the quality was of these safety standards on Twitter. And so the joke was that this brand has left now that children are protected on Twitter, and then launched this ad campaign, which is clearly not protecting children. Now, I wrote a whole article in the Epoch Times a couple of weeks ago about how society's cultural indulgence in the sexualization of children, particularly through things like Netflix series like Cuties, and there was another robot series before it. The fact that we produce this content is a form of abuse, and it encourages a wide and acceptance of abuse in society. And so we have to get our art scene under control, because while ever it's acceptable for Hollywood to indulge in this and to call it edgy and to call it, you know, a form of expression, that's normalizing what is really a criminal act and an abuse of children, and it has to stop. And so far, it's been this slow slide. So you talk about drag queens with children. Now, if you walked in having not been in the school environment for 10 years and you come from, you know, my environment at school, and suddenly walk in and see a man in fishnets and a push-up bra with a toddler on his lap reading about sexuality, well, that would be a massive red flag that something's gone horribly wrong and you should probably call the police. Now, but because this has been so gentle, I mean, I've got friends who've got kids, and they quite literally think, oh, there's nothing wrong with it, we're just being inclusive. Like, they believe this message that's saturating society, that it's just a way of being inclusive. Now, they aren't sitting down and thinking about this being an adult bloke from a sexualized industry. They actually don't sit down and think that through. And this is the main problem. When you say to people it's abusive, they haven't really absorbed what's going on with their children, and they haven't thought about that these are adults from industries who are teaching these children things they shouldn't know and are deliberately confusing them. I've seen people say, oh, but what about Dame Edna? Well, I'm sorry, Dame Edna was not really spending a lot of time in kindergartens, and Dame Edna was a performer for adults and certainly wasn't there trying to confuse the sexuality of young children. So it's not exactly what you call a fair comparison as to what is happening today. So, yeah, that's my experience with this culture. And I don't know how we're going to explain it to parents, because this aggression towards parents, they think that it's fine because they hear people screeching and think, oh, you're just intolerant. But at the same time, they're never sitting down and watching what's happening in classrooms. They're basically unaware of the extent of indoctrination that their own children are being subjected to.
Senator Malcolm Roberts has just joined us, and Senator, it's always great to have you on the program. Senator Malcolm, I just got on my monologue today about this, which you may or may not have been aware. I know you've been busy all day, of this luxury brand Balenciaga promoting bondage and the sexualization of children there it is there in bondage gear, and children holding handbags. How depraved is this when they've got locks and fishnets and everything and using children? Senator Malcolm, what can we do as a people to get our politicians to pull their finger out of their proverbial and stop this kind of nonsense? The sexploitation of children has to stop. I'm not sure if you're aware of this today, but I can see by the look on your face you're quite alarmed. But what can we as a people do, sir?
Well, what we can do is, first of all, stand up and speak out. Go to school principals, tell them what we really think. That's number one. Number two, change who we vote for, because we're going to keep getting this under the Liberal Party and the National Party and the Labor Party and the Greens. The Greens push it, and then the Labor Party adopts it, and then the Liberal Party adopts it. It's the same thing with COVID restrictions. It's the same thing with climate. It's the same thing with gender bending. And also, we need to be aware of the overall agenda, Pat. We need to call that out. This is about destruction of families, destroying our families. That's what it's about ultimately. And it's about giving parents no rights whatsoever. But we must speak up. I must apologise for being late, but I've just finished a speech in the Senate.
I'm glad you made it. We always love your opinion. Now, Alexandra and Senator.
Good to see you, Alexandra.
Yeah.
Love it.
Hey, we've got the rose in between the thorns here today.
Well, look at that smile. I mean, you just said it. That's the rose.
There you go. The Queensland Health Practitioner Regulation Law. When I heard of this, medical tyranny gone to another level. Alexandra, tell us what this is, how scary it is, how evil it is. Over to you, Ellie, and then I'll get Senator Malcolm's comments on it.
I'm sure Malcolm will be able to explain it better than I have, but from what I understand from our writers who've been writing The Spectator about this for several months, so we've got a few great articles from doctors and also from doctors' organisations who are protesting against this bill. So it was a Queensland-centred bill that's now going to become a national thing, where essentially the state and state regulators are able to identify a health message and put out this approved message. And then doctors are not allowed to oppose this message in public in most cases. So it's like what we had in COVID, where you have these experts come out and dictate what the public conversation is going to be. And if some private practitioners say, well, actually, I disagree with what the state says, that will no longer be allowed. And what's interesting is we've never felt the need to have this kind of thing before. It has only popped up because of COVID and because of the dissent by GPs during the COVID message. Places like APRA have decided that they need to have a way to ensure that their message is the only message, and that they call it public trust in health, but it's really not. The proper public trust in health is you don't get that by censoring doctors. That doesn't exactly say to you, wow, we've got so much faith in the health message that we had to shut doctors up under pain of being deregistered. So they've got this whole thing backwards, and all it's really doing is protecting their corporate interests with Big Pharma, because obviously they don't want doctors questioning the safety of pharmaceutical companies and their products that have been approved by the TGA.
Senator Malcolm, your insight into this?
Yes, certainly, Pat, and thank you for raising it. I want to say from the start that Alexandra has nailed it. She's got it completely correct. I also want to say, before I talk about some of the details, is that Steve Andrew, the One Nation member from TYRANNY in Central Queensland in state parliament, voted against this. Labor Party voted for it. The Liberal Party voted for it. The National Party voted for it. What is going on? That's what I mean. We've got to vote differently. Let's have a look at that's what they did in state parliament. Let's have a look at this issue, because what Alexandra said is correct. What the law requires in Queensland now is that doctors must follow the instructions of the bureaucrats to maintain confidence in the healthcare. They cannot question the edicts, the dictates. So that is more important, takes a higher priority according to this law, than the doctor's duty of care to their patient. That is what we've got. We've got doctors being subjugated by bureaucrats, ill-informed, ignorant, and sometimes stupid bureaucrats who are deadly dangerous to people. Let's have a look, a bit more context. So that's what's happened, and the Queensland government passed it, I think, on the 11th of October, maybe in the 11th of November.
And this is to be rolled out nationally, apparently. Is that correct?
Well, that's the next place I was going to go to. The way they've done it, you know, and I knew of two basic sources of law, Pat. You knew of Commonwealth law, which is decided in this building where I'm sitting right now in Federal Parliament House. And you know of state law, which is where Queensland and other states pass laws. Well, I only learned about this just recently as a result of the virus, the mismanagement of the virus, the cruel, inhuman mismanagement of the COVID virus. We also have what's known as national law. It's not really law, but it's national in its jurisdiction because of this. One state, in this case Queensland, implements it. The other states then mirror that legislation, and they create bodies like APRA, which are not accountable to anyone. They dodge, they duck and weave. This was set up in 2009, I believe, Pat. I think Queensland was the first cab off the rank there. So they set up APRA under national law. It's not really law, national law, which means it's away from the federal government's purview. It's away from the state government. Make no mistake, this was driven by the federal government at the time, and federal government since, and federal government during the virus mismanagement. It was set up because the federal government cannot order the states on health matters, because health is a responsibility of the states. Quarantine, maintaining our borders secure, international borders, is a federal government responsibility. But healthcare is a state government responsibility. So they did this to get around the that fact. And what they've done is now, let's take it even further and look at the global impact or the global context. You saw a communique recently from the G20 or B20, I can't remember which one it was, in Bali, I think. They came out, and one of the messages they had was about pushing forward with a global digital passport based upon vaccinations or injections, so that they could control travel, restrict travel, and force people to get injections to travel, and force people to get injections for other things. So this is what they're really after, a global digital passport.
Yeah.
It's really a global digital prison, because they can strain you if you don't get whatever toxin they want to pump into your body. So that's what it's really about. Now, they have not said that they're going to do that. They've said this is the way they want to go, full steam ahead, and that's what their intent is. It's clearly signaled, Pat. And this comes on the back. Sorry.
No, I was going to say,
May I
Ellie,
ask
yep, go ahead. Yeah, I was just going to say, yeah.
So one of my writers actually asked the Liberal Party why they voted for this bill, and the Liberals said that, well, there was other stuff in the bill that they kind of wanted. So this apathy towards serious issues by the Liberal Party is their major failing. They don't do it just in this, they do it in other things as well. But what is being left out is the commercial aspect of this bill. So for the first time in a generation, we've got governments who have spent billions of dollars in public money on vaccine bases, which have got a very short life expectancy. So when public trust, as in, for example, people discovering that the vaccines might be harmful to them from international reports, that dissuades them from going and getting a fourth, a fifth, and a sixth shot. Well, then those vaccines sit there and they expire, and then the government has to explain why they spent billions of dollars on stuff they threw out. So this idea of preserving public trust is as much a commercial responsibility between the government and the vaccine manufacturers as it is anything else, in which they promise that the health message will be consistent, and therefore the public will continue to subscribe to whatever this product is that they have purchased. And Malcolm Roberts is absolutely correct about the initiation of a digital health passport, which is what they said they were going to do a couple of years ago, and everyone said, no, you're a conspiracy theorist, but it's been in the works for a long time. That is all about ensuring that a global system of movement for people, unless you're an illegal migrant crossing borders, in a dinghy. But for everybody else who wants to go on holiday,
or you're an elite.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone who's
or you're an elite
will now have to make sure that their vaccine register is up to date with whatever the latest product is that these guys want to sell you, or else you will be trapped. Now, that is a form, as Malcolm says, it is a digital medical prison, and I don't believe enough people are aware of or understanding how serious this is, and that they are intending to bring this in the next year or two.
Well, Senator?
Pat, perhaps I could add to Alexandra, because she hit the key word, trust. You don't get trust by shutting people down. You get trust by encouraging people to talk. If you can't mount a good argument against someone, you shut up. If you can mount a good argument with them, speak up. Now, when we shut people down, the truth eventually comes out. In Senate estimates, when was that? 2 weeks ago, I asked the Federal Chief Medical Officer, Professor Paul Kelly, about the plummeting births in this country. The latest figures we have. So this is what destroys trust. Alexandra is absolutely correct. It's not an edict that builds trust. It's figures and data and effectiveness. How can we have trust when we looked at the last year of records that we have, the latest year of records we have for births, which is 2021. We don't have any births on the database from the Australian Bureau of Statistics, Pat, for any month this year. The state governments give the birth records to the Australian Bureau of Statistics, I think, within weeks of the close of a month. Now, for the first 6 months of 2021, remember the injection started coming in around about February, March. I think it was more like March of 2021. Now, the births for 2021 were influenced heavily by the fact that 9 months earlier, there were lockdowns, severe lockdowns. What happens in lockdowns? People conceive babies. So in the first 6 months of 2021, before the injections started taking their toll, we had a higher than average births per month from January to June. But in the 6 months after June, that's July through to December, every month was below average. Now that's significant in itself, but listen to this. The average typical month is 24,000 births. I can't get over this. In November 2021, 8 months after the injections hit, there were 18,000 births. Wait for it.
Wow.
In December 2021, there were 6,600.
Oh.
That's down 3/4, which ties in with the figures overseas, which ties in with various gynecologists and obstetricians who are saying similar kinds of things about stillbirths. The rate of conception plummets. The rate of miscarriages soars. The rate of births plummets. We are looking, and then we also asked figures recently, asked questions in the Senate on question time about the deaths. If we look at the death figures, all-cause mortality.
Yeah.
Okay, all-cause mortality goes in a band. It varies naturally from year to year, but it's roughly within a band.
Wow.
Since early 2021 or mid-2021, the all-cause mortality has soared above the upper range of these normal death figures, significantly above, well above, and you can see the peaks soon after the second shot and soon after the third shot. So what we're seeing is an incredible increase in deaths, and we're seeing an incredible decrease in births. This is really serious predicament we're in.
I know there's people out there that go, oh, you guys are crazy, conspiracy theories, blah, 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 blah. Let me just say this, and I know, we've all got different beliefs here, even just on this panel here. But man's depravity, and when man as in human beings, don't respect life, especially your life, don't respect a child's life, don't respect the elderly's life, don't respect the life of a baby that's born a day or two after, why wouldn't they be committed to population control under the guise of medical safety? Why does the government want all this control over our bodies and our minds and our children and our resources and the environment? I mean, it shows no end here as to the control and government overreach. How much of this, Ellie, do you believe is driven by the likes of World Economic Forum, World Trade Organization, and of course the International Mafia Fund, Monetary Fund, and who? How much of this is part of this global activist agenda, and we're just the guinea pigs, in your opinion?
Well, before I answer that question, I need to point out a problem with definitions. So the first thing is this idea of public trust, which is absolutely essential to what we're talking about and the basis upon which these things are built. So APRA believes public trust is a consensus, this wonderful word that all these global organizations use to justify their behavior. And by consensus, they mean that they've shut all the scientists up and that nobody's allowed to question the doctrine of the state. Now, the general public believe public trust to be that the people involved in monitoring and managing the medical industry have the power to look into, to dissent, and to agree of their own free will. That's what public trust means to the people. Now, those two are very different things, and we see an increasing age in this global health environment in which consensus is being forced and mandated by regulations like this in order to justify an increasing regime of tyranny, both medical tyranny and climate tyranny. We're seeing it in all aspects of our lives, and it's completely unacceptable, and it's never called out. Now, as far as this global network is concerned, the question that we were asking during the height of the pandemic is, why is the pursuit of a unified health approach being sought in the first place, because there's no evidence to suggest that unified health at a global scale is actually the right thing to do, because when you've got an unknown like a virus, the best thing you can do is allow countries to explore their own solutions and to see which one works. Whereas if you've only got one solution, well, you've got no way to tell if that was the best way to go about something. And the answer is, to answer your question directly, is this mix of big corporate with bureaucracy, in which we had, for example, with the pandemic, mRNA vaccines were a product that were not approved, and a lot of money had been funneled into this product beforehand. So we had countries like Australia pouring tens of millions of dollars into a bureaucracy developing mRNA vaccines. They couldn't get approval. So when the pandemic came through, they used the power of bureaucracy and the lie of one world unified health in order to sell this product and rush it through protections that it should have been caught at before it got anywhere. Now, that's why they love this thing. It's why bureaucrats are so invested in One Health. It's why the corporations like Big Pharma say we need to have unified health approach, because it helps their bank balance to have an authority like the World Health Organization saying, you will all take this vaccine or you will not travel. That's why they do this.
Senator, you made a brilliant speech to Parliament, which really moved me. Being an unemotional Italian that I am, it really,
you didn't need to
really
say emotional and Italian.
Well, I think, I don't know if you have that there with you about the Great Resist.
Oh, yeah.
But if anyone hasn't heard that, do yourself a favour. Do your children a favour. Do your grandchildren a favour. Get over to Malcolm's social media and listen to what this awesome man said. And I'm going to use the word, I don't give up, but had the balls enough to say it. And I don't care where you stand, it was just so powerful. And Malcolm, I want to thank you for your stand in Parliament and just sticking it to them. That was just so powerful. It moved me. I want to give you, and then we'll any final things you want to add on the Great Resist, because we need to resist. We need to stand. We need to speak. I mean, this weekend, Victoria, for goodness sake, you know, I've got a couple of my friends running against that despot down there in his seat. Get out there. Anything but Dan is my attitude. Is there anything you'd like to add, Malcolm, on this Great Resist and what we need to do, what we need to be aware of?
Well, first of all, I mentioned it first a few months ago. We had a 2-minute speech dedicated to it just recently. It's in response to the World Economic Forum's Great Reset. Many people have heard of that. It's a fraud. And what we need to do is have a great resist and resist the UN and the World Economic Forum, which formed an alliance in 2018. But the various things we can do to resist are, first of all, don't keep voting Labor, Liberal, National Party, Greens, because they're the ones who are pushing the Great Reset. They're the vehicles for it. The second thing is speak up, learn as much as you can about it. I didn't know about this, Pat, until about 2010, when I started to had 2 years of researching the climate, and then I found out what was really driving that climate scam, and it is a scam. It was the UN. Later on, I found out about the World Economic Forum, and these people are puppets of the major corporates, BlackRock and Vanguard, who are owned and controlled by the major families around the world. Just a few who want to try and control everything. So the other thing we've got to do is we've got to spread the word amongst our friends, our families, our workmates, our social friends, our sporting friends. Spread the word so that people become educated. So, and I know I haven't got enough time to tell you all, but let me ask you a question. I wonder if Alexandra knows this as well, but Pat, I'll ask you. Who are the greatest, no, that's not the right word, who have murdered the most people in the world? Who are the mass murderers with the biggest victim record?
Historically, or you're talking now?
No, well, historically, last century.
Hitler, Pol Pot, Stalin.
Yep. Hitler was about 20 million, I think. Stalin was about 30. Mao Zedong was about 60. million people dead.
Mm.
What about the name Maurice Strong? Have you heard of him?
No.
Maurice Strong, yeah, Alexandra has. Maurice Strong is the father of climate change. He's the one who created it, fabricated it. And he's dead now, died in 2015. An incredible intellect, incredible networker, can get people to do almost anything. Very, very persuasive. I haven't got time to go into the details, but Maurice Strong was basically a Canadian billionaire who made money out of oil. He set aside his oil company, left it in the hands of other people to manage, and entered politics, but not up front, around the back. And then he swung himself. He made paid for a report on the state of the planet back in 1970. 2 years later, the United Nations Environmental Program was formed as part of the UN. And there were some environmental issues, no doubt about it, in the 1970s, but they've all been cleaned up because in the West, we value a clean environment. We care about the planet.
Correct.
So they were cleaned up. What he did was he used it. He became, and then 6 months after forming the United Nations Environmental Program, he became the Undersecretary of the United Nations Environmental Program. He was in charge. He got himself into that job. Now you think about it. The UN is full of useless hacks, failed politicians, failed bureaucrats, failed, diplomats. They have no clue as to what's going on. They're run by bureaucrats, just like the EU is run by bureaucrats behind the scenes. And they run, in areas of the environment, they defer to people like Maurice Strong because none of these clowns would know much about the environment. So Maurice Strong could pull whatever strings he wanted in the United Nations. He created the fraud of climate change, created it. He became a director on the Chicago Climate Exchange, which was formed, including Al Gore and Goldman Sachs Bank and others, was formed to trade carbon dioxide credits. He was wanting to make himself rich, billionaire out of this. Now, what he did, this is now, so that gives you some idea. He was also wanted for criminal activities in the Western United States. He's a Canadian, by the United States law enforcement officials. He fled to China, where he stayed in exile just before he died. So the man is a crook. He's thoroughly rotten. Or he was. Now, what he did was the United Nations pumped up a scam about DDT, which was a very, very effective pesticide. It was used to kill the malaria mosquito, the mosquito that carries malaria and kills people, the malaria parasite. So what they did was they started using DDT, and it eradicated malaria wherever it was used. In 1976, just 4 years after Maurice Strong took over at the UN Environmental Program, they banned DDT. The United States Environmental Protection Agency science administrator said that they analyzed DDT. Providing it was used properly, there was no threat to the natural environment or to humans. The administrator for the whole of the EPA said, this is political, we are going to ban it. The United Nations drove that ban. In 2006, 30 years later, DDT's use was restored after the UN World Health Organization's malaria eradication team pleaded. It was restored. And in those 30 years from 1976 to 2006, there's an estimated 40 to 50 million people died from malaria.
Wow.
That puts him above Stalin and slightly below Mao Zedong. That's why number 2 on the mass murderers list is Maurice Strong from the United Nations. That's how evil these people are.
And this is why it's important to get informed. I want to encourage every one of you to follow Senator Malcolm Roberts, listen to what he says, listen to his speeches. Senator, I want to thank you for being here today. I know you're busy. It's always great to have you. Our people love you. We appreciate you and we honour you. And thank you for all you're doing there in the House of Parliament. And thanks for that information. Maurice, I had no idea. Get informed, people. Thank you, Senator. Appreciate that very much. Thanks for your time.
You're welcome. And I also want to thank you, Pat, because part of getting the word around is stop listening to the mouthpiece media, the Mockingbird media, the Big Brother media, the legacy media. Stop listening to them because they're the shills. They're owned by the major corporations. They're the shills that hide the real news and pump out the propaganda. So what we need is independent, truth-seeking people, free media like yourself. And I want to really compliment Alexandra. She does an amazing job, on Sky.
Amazing.
She does an amazing job with The Spectator, and she's a very, very effective broadcaster and media personality. So thank you so much, both of you, for spreading the news. Thank you,
Senator. Now, Alexandra, I want people to get informed. We need to get people educated. Alexandra, tell us about Spectator magazine and tell us some of the awesome stuff you guys got happening now towards the end of the year.
Okay, so you asked, how do we start in the great resist? And your first line of defense, and in fact, sometimes your only line of defense, is a press that are prepared to publish the stories that the mainstream media and that these elites do not want you to hear. So when the story about this medical tyranny bill, which is what I'm going to call it from now until the end of time, when that broke, the only publication that would publish the story and publish the dissenting doctors was The Spectator Australia. So the only reason that half this information is known is because we are sitting here and allowing doctors to speak out against this assault on their freedom to bring people the best healthcare possible. So currently, I ask you to support The Spectator Australia. Go to spectator.com.au. We've currently got a big Black Friday sale on, so it's 10 issues for just $1, Pat. $1.
What?
You can support Australian media that actually cares about protecting Australians from these international bureaucracies. Now, we have got such an amazing wide range of authors now. We have everyone from medical practitioners all the way through to real environmentalists, the environmentalists that actually care about the environment, not the ones that are in the pockets of the United Nations. We've got politicians like Malcolm Roberts has wonderful pieces that he writes for us, so you can follow his work there as well. So please, I ask everyone to come on board and to support us and to subscribe, because we are being pushed down by mainstream media. They do not want us to exist. We are being censored on social media. We can't run ads to put our stories out there. So while you're being drowned by the other media institutions, we're there with your stories, supporting you, Australian people, and we would love to hear your voices. So please come along, join us. We're on Facebook and Twitter as well. And we'd love you to join our sale event and to come and join our community of wonderful writers.
Absolutely. Now, listen to me, Australia. Listen to me. All over the world, get on board for $1. Listen to me. $1. Come on, get informed. Ignorance is not bliss. Ignorance means the stuff that we've been talking about today runs rampant. So get over there on Spectator magazine. Let me just make a special announcement. Listen to me, everyone. This is so important. Next Thursday week, I'm interviewing David Harris Jr. He's just with President Trump. He was just with President Trump just the other day when I called him. This is going to be an exclusive. Listen to me very carefully. You need to be aware. My Zoom capacity is about 1,000 people. We are marketing and promoting this globally everywhere. David Harris Jr., he's going to talk about the Biden computer. He's going to talk about the Biden economy. He's going to talk about what really happened on that day when they stormed the Capitol. He was there. Now, you've got to go to mesiti.com/protect and grow. I'm going to get my team put that in the chat there. You need to get a hold of this. I know David Harris is going to change your life. You've got to protect yourself. You've got to protect your assets. You've got to do something about your financial future. This is a must. This is so important that David is promoting this to his entire reach all over the world of something like 6 million people. Now, if you don't register, you're going to miss out. It's free. It's free. You've got to be informed. Also, the next thing, I will be in Perth. Not this weekend, but the following weekend, we will be in Perth for 1 day and 1 day only. If you go to mesitilive.com, we have limited capacity at the church here with Pastor Clive. It's going to be a great day. People are coming from all over Perth to be part of this special Sunday. Not this weekend, the following weekend. We're going to be there in the morning and in the evening. And lastly, this Sunday, I'm going to expose the digital identity. We're marching towards the mark. You read into that what you want. But I'm going to lift the lid off this like I've never been able to before and really show you what's going on. Folks, I want to encourage you, please like and subscribe. Go over to all our social media sites, Rumble, etc. Could you please do yourself and this nation's future a favor? Share this. Share this far and wide. Share this on every platform you can. Today was so important. The issue of sexploitation of children, the medical tyranny, the identity bill and what it means to you and your future. We've got to get people informed and we've got to get them awake. Please share this everywhere you can. And also get on over there to a Spectator magazine and support the whole team there, Rowan and the likes, who I really want to meet one day. And my great friend James McPherson and others, they're all on over there. All right, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Ellie. Thank you, Senator Malcolm. God bless you, everyone. Don't just listen, share. God bless you, everyone.